Hi, friends. Thank you for stopping by. And if you're new here, thank you so much. I have been super, super, super sick lately. I don't know what I had. It's some sort of a virus, but it wasn't like the symptoms of the virus weren't that severe. Like I had like a little bit of a stuffy nose and like a little bit of a cough, but like, man, I was like knocked off my feet for the last couple days. Like I've just been, um, just really like not feeling well. So I hope that I'm not like too like scatterbrained in this video. I just haven't been well. I wanted to talk a little bit today about unequally yoked friendships. I know I've been talking a lot about marriage, and I think I've kind of like said what I wanted to say. I was really, when I was sick, I was on Twitter a lot. And I have since gotten rid of my Twitter page actually because I was like, I can't be on this platform. Like, it's just so horrible. Um, I just can't do Twitter. But like, marriage today and like the role of women and men is so incredibly divisive that I just don't even really want to touch it anymore, to be honest. Like, I know that there's a place for Christian women to speak, but I'm not sure I can like bear the brunt of that, to be honest. Like, I don't think I really want to kind of venture into that world of like traditional marriage or like all of that stuff, just because, like, for me personally, like, the anger and the hostility around that is just like, it's a little too much for me to bear at this point in my life. Like, I just need to kind of protect my own emotions a little bit and like not just like I don't know, it's a rough world out there. It's a rough world. So anyway, so I think I'm going to kind of wrap up the marriage stuff. And today I wanted to go more into friendships. And these are things that'll apply to anybody. It doesn't matter if you're married or not, male, female, it doesn't matter. Although as a woman, I'm always thinking about women when I'm putting out these videos because I'm not a man and I don't necessarily know what guys go through in their friendships or whatever. I do think men and women are really different in their outlooks for the most part, but I think we're called to the same level of holiness. But as far as like the emotional world, I think it's quite different between men and women. So anyway, I wanted to talk about this concept of the equally yoked friendship. Um, St. Paul tells us to be careful, to not be mismatched in our friendships. And I wanted to explore that a little bit, kind of like unpack that. Because I think this concept of equally yoked is really interesting for anybody, actually. It's not just for Christians. And I think everything in the Bible is for everybody, right? But I think anybody could gain wisdom from the Bible, even if they don't necessarily like have a deep belief in God. Um, Although I think, ultimately I hope everybody comes to faith. But this concept of kind of this unequally yoked friendship, and we find St. Paul talking about this in 2 Corinthians 14. I have a Bible right here. This is a Catholic Bible. I don't actually like this translation very much. Because it doesn't actually say anything about, well, anyway, I'm not a huge fan of the translation, but I'm going to read it really quickly just to get so you guys know what I'm talking about. Do not be mismatched with unbelievers, for what partnership have righteousness and iniquity? Or what fellowship light with darkness? That's kind of like all we need to read of this. So it's this idea of being tied to somebody who doesn't share your religious principles. And being tied, I think, is like more than just being married or more than living with somebody. I think it's like being emotionally, like for me personally, I'm like, I think this goes beyond just who you marry. A lot of people use this like with regards to marriage, but I think this is actually more like, this is my own interpretation, but like I think it applies more to all friendships and like all relationships that you have, including family, old friends or whatever. The problem with being unequally yoked is that if you imagine that you're two oxen on and you're trying to plow a field. If one ox is slower than the other one, or one ox is refusing, like outright refusing to go somewhere, you can't plow that field, right? So the oxen are just going to be kind of like circling around, right? Um, and I think that's an important idea to like really think about this, because I don't think St. Paul is just saying avoid unbelievers, because I actually think that even if you share the same religious conviction, you can be unequally yoked with somebody, even if you guys both believe the same thing, because you could be on a totally different spiritual path than that person. And that person can kind of hold you back if, you're earnestly trying to go forward in your spiritual life and they're not. And it doesn't really matter kind of what their basic beliefs are. And I think also, you could be in a friendship with somebody who doesn't have any of your spiritual beliefs, but they could challenge you in other ways that are beneficial for your spirituality, if that makes sense. Or there could be supportive of you in a way that nurtures your spiritual life. For this reason, you could have a friendship in like another area of life, and you could learn something, or like beyond just church. You could have a friend that you learn a lot about parenting, or you learn a lot about housekeeping, or you learn a lot about work, or you learn a lot about like you can learn things from other people even if they don't have the exact same spiritual beliefs that you do. And I think though where we get into a lot of trouble is when as Christians we kind of let our boundaries down, and suddenly we find ourselves in an unequally yoked friendship that's sort of pulling us back from God. Now, does this mean you have to cut off everybody that doesn't share that they're not willing to like kind of go with you on your journey? No, it doesn't mean you have to cut them off, but I think we have to be very realistic about friendships with people that are kind of holding us back. If a friendship, if talking to somebody or being involved with somebody in a relationship of any sort, if that pulls your attention away from God, and after you stop hanging out with that person, let's say you go out for dinner or you go out for coffee or whatever, and afterwards you're like, oh, I don't necessarily want to be a better person after this conversation. Like I'm kind of angry, or like I feel drained, then I think, it's time to put up it's time to put up some emotional boundaries and to just kind of see that friendship for what it is. I do know, now that I'm battling cancer, my friendships, if I have friendships with people where it is quite unequal, if I'm more of the supportive person in that relationship, that's going to be almost impossible for me to maintain at this point. Like I can't have kind of that like type of friendship where I'm putting more effort into, or I'm doing for, without really feeling support back. And I have to be very guarded because, we can fall into these patterns of friendships where somebody just takes and takes and takes, and they never really reciprocate, or they can't really be there for us emotionally, or they don't make us feel better. They just make us feel worse. And it doesn't help our spiritual development. So I think as Christians, yes, we're called to love people and we're called to be kind to people, but we can't actually allow people to derail our spiritual life. And we have to be very honest with ourselves and very humble about this, because there are some friendships that could very well be like near occasions of sin, honestly. Because if somebody is like irritating you or bothering you or making you feel like if they're not uplifting you, they're not encouraging you to be a better person, even if what they say to you might be true sometimes, like maybe they say things that are true, but if it hurts you and it doesn't inspire you, that's not going to help your religious formation. Now, I will say where unequally yoked friendships it doesn't like what they could look like. It doesn't mean that you're at the same level of spiritual development. Okay. So it doesn't, like, for this reason, you can be friends with somebody that is much further down that road than you are, or you could have somebody who is much further behind. What matters is they want to get there at some point, or that you are inspired to be better by this person, or that person is inspired to be better by you. And that, like, if you're trying to talk to them and it's just like whatever you're saying goes in one ear and out the other, like over and over and over again about anything, if they will never take counsel, then you're basically just wasting your breath with that person. And like, you've got to put up some boundaries with them. Okay. So yeah, because, I think, especially if you're, well, not just especially if you're married, but like, especially if you have other more important people to attend to in your life. So we have this sort of hierarchy, right? And like, God is the most important. And then if you're married, your spouse is next, and then your children. And you got to be careful. Like, are the people that you're surrounding yourselves, are they making you a better parent? Are they making you a better wife? Are they making you a better husband? Or are they pulling your attention away from those people and away from God? And if you're single, it's the exact same thing. So everybody knows. I think we can all kind of like calculate in our heads. If you're a single person, like, who is it that you really value? And I think sometimes we should just like actually just sit down and evaluate this. Of just like, write down, who is it that is on that, like, the top of your priority list after God, if you're unmarried. It could be a sibling, it could be your parents, it could be anybody. But you have to make sure that there's nobody else that's sort of drawing your attention away from that in a way that takes that depletes your emotional reserves for the people that matter the most to you. And this is especially true if you're married, because you're under religious obligation there. Like, you are obligated to be there for your spouse, I think, emotionally and spiritually and physically. Like, you are under obligation for that. So if people are taking you away emotionally, spiritually, or physically, or if you're a parent, like, that's a problem. And, there could be a part of you that really wants to be the hero, and that would be pride. So you're not going to, we have to be very realistic and humble about this. Like, there are people we're not going to reach, and the Holy Spirit is in charge of that. Like, the Holy Spirit can bring them into the faith, but there's only so much you can do. And at that point, if you're, if there's somebody in your life that is like sort of pulling you away, just model what you believe a good Christian should behave like, but you don't have to spend time nurturing that friendship. You can be polite. You can say hi when you see them out. But you do not need to be pulled away from God and from your family or the other people that matter to you in order to kind of like try to pull somebody forward or to try to help them. Okay. Because I don't know about you, but like, there are going to be people that are having these problems that never go away. They never go away. And all of a sudden, after years and years and years of a friendship or whatnot, you're like, wait a second, like, I'm not actually being uplifted. There's no reciprocation here spiritually or emotionally or physically or anything. Like, it's nothing but a drain. So anyway, stay away from the unequally yoked friendships. And again, you can have it's not equally yoked spiritually, but like, you can have an intellectually yoked friendship with somebody, or you can have, there are other friendships. And those people, especially if you feel that it's reciprocal, if they really value your friendship, those people might be more likely to join the faith, for instance. So that's fine. Like, you can be friends with people that are not in the faith. It's just kind of like people that want to grow, and the people that are open, and the people that you can have this kind of reciprocal relationship with. Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.